Finland has done an incredible job specifically resisting misinformation, and that their key weapon has been kindergartners, has been the way that they have educated kindergartners to critically start looking at online information sources, at articles, videos, all of it. Where is it made? Who is it made by? How is it targeted? How is it phrasing things? Even in a multidisciplinary sense, looking at the way from an art angle that different graphics might present things, and that how you can use mathematics to tweak statistics. But it has caused a movement up where if someone in a household or in a local community tells them one thing, then they have effectively been able to stop that from taking root. For example, the HPV vaccine here, at one point, less than 10 years ago, there was a push to resist giving young people the HPV vaccine, which, looking at it scientifically, statistically, makes no sense.
No.
But it was stopped when parents would talk to their daughters, and the daughters would say, "No, I'm getting it. Don't be crazy. Here are the sources. Here's why it's medically sound, and here's why I'm getting it." How do you think? So that was a long introduction for a question, but how do you think hyperlocalism and education are connecting, and how that's going to change things?
Well, it's interesting with education, isn't it? Because I'm not sure schools in the way they're set up are actually fit for the 21st century. I don't think they are at all. I think what the last year has proven is that children can learn facts and knowledge at home just as easily as they can learn in the school. Yeah. So you've got to say, well, what are the schools for? And to me, the job of a school in the 21st century is to socialize people and to get them to be valuable, interested, participatory people in society. Because I think the Finnish experiment, which I also read the article about, was interesting, because they are taking a systems view of that, and they're addressing it right at the bottom level and stopping the bifurcations of the chain, and therefore the build-up of lots of noise at the top that says, don't do this, don't do this. They're trying to, Bill Gates is trying to steal you. Education's an interesting one. You can teach half of the curriculum online without any doubt. In any system, in any country, there are certain things you're going to want to learn. You're going to want to learn to read, write, all of those sorts of things. Not necessarily write, but at least be able to understand language in the right way. But there are other things you just don't need. And how great would it be if schools were incredibly hyperlocal again? So actually what you had was small, tiny segmented communities with what's called an education space, and they were managed in a way that coordinated the actual physical learning that was done at home via the internet, and then brought them together to socialize in their community. Now, I'm going to get slammed here for being some sort of socialist commie for saying this, but but actually we need good citizens. We need people to take a balanced view of things, and the Finns have adopted that way of doing that. And immediately what you'd have in the UK is people saying, they're telling us what to think and this, that, and the other. Well, it's precisely the opposite. It's telling you how to think, not what to think.
Exactly.
And I think we need to do that. And that does take interfacing, I think, with people. It does take people to explain things and to talk and to discuss. And it does need you to interact with people. But you don't, if you want to learn the history of your country and the dates of events, you can do that at home.
Right.
And I think this is where it starts to change, so what's the value to the local community? So why, instead of having a school, one school for a town of 15,000 people and there are 800 kids in the school, why not have 4 schools in each area and let them just sort of build the community around the school, and let them bring businesses into the school if you want, but make it a genuine part of the community. It's almost medieval It's almost medieval English. You know, because in England in medieval times we had the village and feudal system, etc. And if you look at the spread of villages in farming areas in England, and sadly I did do some of this when I was at school. I was measuring distances between villages to look at their spread. All the villages in the farming areas here are about half a day cart ride away from each other, which meant that you could get up in the morning, take your cart with your produce, go to the next village, sell it, and come back in the same day. Or and then gradually one of those towns, maybe it was on a river, would become bigger and more important. They would start to host a market, so you could get to the market, do your trading, and come back. And that's where that commercial sort of network has arisen from here. I mean, I know it's arisen in similar ways everywhere else as well. But there were physical limits on what you could and couldn't do, and the limits on a lot of the stuff we do now don't exist. But the socialization clearly doesn't work online, and this is the problem with it. With online socialization, you're only getting a very skewed picture of what being part of a society is about. And this whole vaccine thing's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there are people, you can put figures in front of people. I mean, I can put the UK, you know, the UK figures of polio vaccine. Before polio vaccine, we had 300,000 cases a year. Within 2 years of it being introduced, it was down to 30. Now you say that, and you say, well, this was in the 1950s or whatever. I can't remember the exact, you know, times. And there's been no after effects from that, right? None. In all that time recorded. And they say, yeah, but that's not the same. You say, well, yes, it is. You know, that's a very clear example. And I can give you a very clear example of the rubella vaccine and the, you know, and all of these things. And literally, once you vaccinate people, the cases go boom. And then they go, well, what about that person who it didn't work for? And you say, yeah, it's one person versus 300,000.
Yeah.
And
how many
you're never
would you
going
like
to take
to
risks.
die?
You know, and these people are the people who say you've got to be allowed to take risks. You can't have a nanny state.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know, but the point is, it is bizarre. It strikes me that people who grew up with those diseases 60 years ago understood perfectly well how awful they were, and people now don't. And similarly, in countries here, you know, I know other countries are different, but in countries like the UK, we don't know what war's like actually, because we send wars to other countries now. You know, and we join in battles around the world, but we don't have fighting on our streets, and there's virtually nobody alive now who remembers it. And so therefore they don't have that sense. There was a great deal of propaganda in the UK came out in the aftermath of the World War II about, we will build a better country for you, you will never have to worry about your health, education, etc., because they knew if they didn't follow through after that, then there would literally be a revolution. And we haven't had a revolution, but they knew it was that close. So we got a welfare state, and we got all of those things as a reward for World War II, the recession before it in World War I, and the destruction and stuff it caused, and then the loss of empire and all of that. But the governments coming in, both parties, you know, agreed that that was the consensus. We need to reward people, but people have forgotten. And I think the power of hyperlocalism is that people can start to remember, and they can start to remember with people that they might meet on the street. And this is the great thing that's missing from social media, isn't it? You can go on social media and abuse someone. You're never going to meet them. Never. And you don't even need to say who you are. You know, you could be a totally fake name. It doesn't matter. But actually, if you do it locally, and you could very well meet them, and that moderates things, the physicality. So I think that's where one of the strengths of the hyperlocalism will come, and I think one of the benefits of it will be that once people start interacting properly at that low level, you know that you're not going to avoid meeting these people, so you better moderate what you say and what you think.